It's difficult not to feel hatred in your heart for the terrorists that are murdering us, that are murdering our most innocent and vulnerable as they lay in bed, visit cafes, or just walk down the street. It's difficult not to feel hatred for them, for those that are encouraging and inciting them, and for the masses dancing in the streets and handing out candy in celebration of their murder. And while I'm not sure that hatred is the wrong thing, I do believe that it's destructive and corrosive, not just for the world, but for the very person nurturing that hatred inside themselves. And the truth is that there's no need for us to hate, because hatred is rooted in fear. It's that primal response to feeling threatened and not in control. And we are in control. It's easy to forget as we surround ourselves with fences and walls and security guards, but we're the ones in the position of strength. Remember all those wars we fought where we were overwhelmingly outnumbered and outweaponed? Well, miracle alert, we won. It may be hard to internalize, but for the first time in 2,000 years, we're not at anyone else's mercy or under anyone else's authority. We are the authority. There is too much innocent blood flowing through the streets not to ask ourselves the obvious question: why aren't we putting an end to this terrorism? And what we're doing right now to stop this terror, well, it's embarrassing, and even worse, it's ineffective. Beautiful, sweet Hallel is murdered, and our response is to destroy her killer's house? That's what she's worth, a pile of bricks and a kitchen counter? Besides the fact that the terrorist families are now considered heroes by association and will receive more than enough money from the Palestinian Authority to build again. So here are just a couple obvious initial measures that would curb terrorism dramatically, if not stop it altogether. Number one, arrest and deport everyone responsible for inciting this terror, from the thousands who spread incitement to murder on Facebook, to the mayor of Hebron who went to pay his respects and show solidarity with that family, to Abbas and his senior advisors who just days before called for the throat slitting of all Jews, and to all those handing out candy and dancing in the streets celebrating the murder of innocent Jews. Arrest them and deport them to Gaza. If they hate us so much, they shouldn't be here. Number two, deport the entire village the terrorist comes from to Gaza. Now that would be a deterrent. At this point, you're probably wondering, hey, Ari, isn't that collective punishment? The answer is yes. Collective punishment is a perfect fit for a collective crime. This jihadist flower who murdered Hallel Ariel was raised in a jihadist garden in which his mother called him a hero, his sister aided and encouraged him, and his entire community celebrated. Demolish the entire village and deport them all to Gaza. I can already hear the voices saying, whoa, we're a compassionate people, a moral people. Doing those things goes against our values. And to you I say, I get it. I love the fact we're a compassionate and loving people by nature. That's why we send first aid to nations seeking our destruction. That's why we treat terrorists right next to their victims in our hospitals. And that's why Hamas and Hezbollah continue to exist, despite the fact that if we wanted to release the full force of our strength, the whole world knows they would be wiped out within 15 minutes. Our compassion is a beautiful part of who we are as a people, and we should never betray that part of ourselves. A life without compassion, mercy, and love, I'm sure we'd all agree, is a life not worth living. But is our compassion being channeled correctly? Too much is on the line right now not to ask ourselves whether refraining from taking these measures, or the many others that would stop terror, is really compassionate at all. Or rather than compassion, could it in fact be cruelty? Well, friends, I'm here to say that deporting this evil from our midst is the compassionate thing to do, not only for us, but even more so for them. Thousands of years ago, the sages of Israel shared wisdom that's as true today as it was then. They said, "He who is compassionate to the cruel will in the end be cruel to the compassionate." By not taking these measures to stop terrorism, we are responsible for the cruel murder of beautiful little Hallel as she lay in her bed. We're responsible for the grief and devastation of her irreparably shattered family. We are responsible for the cruelty of leaving 10 children of the holy peace-loving Rabbi Mickey Mark without a father and their mothers in critical condition. Their lives will never be the same again. We are responsible for the cruelty to the scores of dead and injured innocent Jews whose only crime was being Jews. And taking the necessary measures to stop this terror is compassionate, both for the many innocent Arabs in Israel, and it's compassionate for the terrorists themselves. Regarding the innocent Arabs, we all know there are many. The first people to arrive at the scene of the drive-by shooting of the Mark family were Arabs. They pulled the mother from the car and protected the frightened and wounded children. The first doctor who arrived on the scene administered first aid. He was an Arab. If we are able to effectively deport and expel these murderous jihadists, then we would be able to take down all these walls and fences and live in harmony with the peace-loving Arabs who themselves would no longer need to live in fear for the crime of smiling at or befriending a Jew. What about these good-hearted Arabs, our cousins and our friends? Do they not deserve our compassion? And even for the terrorists, expelling them from Israel would be compassionate for them. For how can children raised on hate and murder possibly expect to live a life with any true semblance of beauty, joy, or happiness? How could any human being slit the throat of a child in her bed and not extinguish whatever spark of divinity lay in their soul if they even had one to begin with? Think about it like this. You're a sniper in World War II and you see a Nazi on his way to a gas chamber full of Jews with a canister of Zyklon B in his hands. What's the kindest thing you could do for the Nazi himself? To me, it's clear the kindest thing you could do for him is to take him out, to shoot him dead, to prevent him from committing such a horrific atrocity from which there's simply no return. Even if we don't punish these terrorists for their evil, it is the simple truth of the universe that they will be punished by their evil. By throwing them out, we are saving them from the inevitable spiritual and emotional devastation that is going to be the result of their murderous evil. We have both the power and the responsibility to end this now. We need to take strong, decisive, and effective measures to protect ourselves, not despite the fact that we're a compassionate people, but because of the fact we're a compassionate people. Now, at this point, you might agree that these are the right things to do and even the compassionate things to do, but you raise the understandable and legitimate contention that the world would never stand for this, that they would turn against us now more than ever before and make us international pariahs. Well, if you want to hear why that will not happen, click below on subscribe and stay tuned for our next video where we'll talk all about that. Shalom from Israel.